In this video presentation, we take a look at a lot of Spanish stem changing verbs in the present tense. Perhaps you remember how tener and venir were conjugated. When you take tener, you look at the first E, and in the forms that go with usted, él, ella, ustedes, ellos, and ellas, your first E changes to an IE. And in the verb venir, the E changes to an IE in those same forms. That's called a stem change. So basically, when you talk about a stem changing verb, these are verbs that have a change inside of the verb itself. It's not just the ending that changes with conjugating. The inside of the verb also has a change. Look at these. These are E to IE stem changing verbs. Querer, to want or to love. Take a look at the conjugation. Yo quiero, usted quiere, él quiere, ella quiere, nosotros queremos, nosotras queremos, ustedes quieren, ellos quieren, ellas quieren. Note that the nosotros and the nosotras form of the verb querer does not have a stem change. That's going to be true of all of the forms with nosotros. You won't have a stem change in the form of the verb that goes with nosotros. Take a look to the right and you see the verb invertir, to invest. Yo invierto, usted invierte, él invierte, ella invierte, nosotros invertimos, nosotras invertimos, ustedes invierten, ellos invierten, ellas invierten. Again, you note that the nosotros and nosotras form does not change its stem. These are more stem changing E to IE verbs. If you take a look at the first group to the left and at the top, you see these are verbs with an AR ending. So you remember how the AR ending goes. But inside the verb, I have colored the letter yellow that's going to change from E to IE. You have recomendar, comenzar, pensar, and cerrar. Look to the right top. You see, these are IR ending verbs. And you have to remember how to conjugate the endings for IR verbs. But again, I have colored in yellow the part inside the verb that changes from an E to an IE. And the verbs here you have are mentir and preferir. Look finally at the bottom of the box in the center and you see ER endings. The two verbs that you have there are entender and perder. So the yellow colored vowel is going to change from an E to an IE when you conjugate it in all forms except for nosotros and nosotras. These two verbs are not E to IE stem changing verbs. These are O to UE stem changing verbs. You see two verbs in front of you, almorzar and devolver. Notice that the O in yellow is going to change from an O to a UE. Yo almuerzo, usted almuerza, él almuerza, ella almuerza, nosotros almorzamos, nosotras almorzamos, ustedes almuerzan, ellos almuerzan, ellas almuerzan. Look to the right, devolver. If you're going to return something to a store, then you might use this verb. Yo devuelvo, usted devuelve, él devuelve, ella devuelve, nosotros devolvemos, nosotras devolvemos, ustedes devuelven, ellos devuelven, ellas devuelven. And here are more verbs that have an O to UE stem change. If you look on the left, you see a list of verbs that have an AR ending. Contar, costar, encontrar, recordar. Look to the right now. You have one verb that has an IR ending. That's the verb dormir. And then at the bottom right, you see verbs that have ER endings. Volver, poder. And then we have another group of stem change verbs. These ones change from an E to an I. Take a look at the verb pedir. All of the forms are going to change from E to I, except for the nosotros, nosotras forms. Yo pido, usted pide, él pide, ella pide. Nosotros pedimos, nosotras pedimos, ustedes piden, ellos piden, ellas piden. Look at the right. You have the verb servir. Note that the E again changes to an I in all forms except for nosotros and nosotras. Yo sirvo, usted sirve, él sirve, ella sirve, nosotros servimos, nosotras servimos, ustedes sirven, ellos sirven, ellas sirven. Here you have E to I stem changing verbs as well. On the left, you have two verbs that follow all of the previous pattern from the previous slide. Medir, repetir. However, on the right side of the slide, you see decir, elegir, seguir, conseguir. These are all E to I stem changing verbs, but decir, elegir, seguir, and conseguir have a special little surprise. The surprise is a slight irregularity. Decir, you see that the E will change to I in all forms except for nosotros and nosotras. Yo digo, usted dice, él dice, ella dice, nosotros decimos, nosotras decimos, ustedes dicen, ellos dicen, ellas dicen. Take a look at the yo form. What's different about this verb is that the C changes to a G. On the right, you see elegir. Yo elijo, usted elige, él elige, ella elige, nosotros elegimos, nosotras elegimos, ustedes eligen, ellos eligen, ellas eligen. Note in the yo form, you have a change from a G to a J. Yo elijo. And these two verbs, seguir and conseguir. Look carefully at the two verbs. You see that seguir is listed in both of them. However, in the second, conseguir, it has C-O-N before seguir. Look at the forms of seguir. Yo sigo, usted sigue, él sigue, ella sigue, nosotros seguimos, nosotras seguimos, ellos siguen, ellas siguen. Now look at conseguir. Yo consigo, usted consigue, él consigue, ella consigue, nosotros conseguimos, nosotras conseguimos, ellos consiguen, ellas consiguen. So take a look. You see that what happens here is that the U disappears in the yo form. Seguir has a U in it right after the G, but the yo form, yo sigo, it doesn't have a U. The same is true on the right. You see conseguir has a U after the G. Well, that U disappears in the form that goes yo consigo. And one more for good measure. This is a U to UE verb. These are not very common in Spanish. This verb, jugar, however, is fairly common because it means to play. Yo juego, usted juega, él juega, ella juega, nosotros jugamos, nosotras jugamos, ustedes juegan, ellos juegan, ellas juegan. like all the other stem-changing verbs, the forms that go with nosotros and nosotras do not change their stem. Nos vemos. C'est la vie 2020.